Hey, just a quick disclaimer before we begin. My friend Honey here will pop in from time to time to show you some of the signs used in Mipmipmip. However, due to the sad fact that smart dolls don't come with articulated fingers, she is unable to make certain hand shapes without assistance. Of special note is the three-fingered pinch, which is both commonly used and has no good representation with the hands she has available. Because of this, I will be turning to our good friend Poser Putty to assist her with her occasional lack of fingers. Additionally, anytime the hand shape is ambiguous, I will use the on-screen subtitles to clarify. Now, on to the video.
Hello and welcome. My name is Cheryl and this is my finals project for FLK 412. There is one thing I must explain before the report proper begins. Firstly, due to some unforeseen circumstances, I am recording this part with 2 hours left before the deadline. Those same unforeseen circumstances also mean that I will occasionally be hopping into what my past self is saying to provide corrections. Don't worry, I will explain.
Now, for the dead language I chose to study, it is commonly agreed that it fell into decline because it drove all its speakers insane. However, as I see no plausible way for this to occur, I believe it is simply a fantastical explanation for a mundane event. As a brief note before we begin, I'm aware this language's internal name is Parvish. However, due to how frequently I will be mentioning its ancestor, Pachresha, in this report, I will instead use the name its neighboring cultures gave it, Mipmipmip. Now, Mipmipmip is a hypertonal language, meaning both its vowels and its consonants have many sound-alikes elsewhere in its phonology. The consonants of this language that I've been able to confidently identify pronunciation on, sorry labiodental squelch, are ta, da, ka, ga, sa, za, sha, ja, ma, na, ha, ga, pa, ba, which is like normal P, but you only ever open half your mouth, ka, fa, va, and In total, 31 consonants. For vowels, there are a, aw, and o. In total, 9 vowels. Now, the reason Mipmipmip has 2 associated alphabets is due to a shift from the original Abjad to a more modern series of characters near the end of Koschei the Deathless's second vampire plague. However, just because Mipmipmip started with an Abjad doesn't mean that there aren't some interesting things that happened with it. It is important for us to compare the original Abjad to the characters used in Pachresha, Mipmipmip's main linguistic ancestor. For example, although it is a common theory that changes such as the swapping of the and ha glyphs occurred due to a temporary loss of one of the sounds, I find it simpler to believe they merely adapted the Abjad used by a different local culture to their own needs. Needless to say, I will be using both the later alphabet and a simplified version of the earlier Abjad, specifically one without the mysterious squiggles, to illustrate my points. Now, Mipmipmip has no traditional verbs, adjectives, or even nouns. Rather, in Mipmipmip, every root word has the potential to inflect into a verb, adjective, or noun with an affix, similar to English's ish or ing. These affixes are typically prefixed for Mipmipmip, but occasionally they are added to the end as a suffix to specify a more specific idea that needs to be broken down, such as warrior versus army versus armies. To specify how the inflections work for Mipmipmip, I will use the root toltal, which is associated with sight and eyes. For nouns, the inflections are categorized by the number of entities, one, a few, or many, as well as the specificity, a thing versus the thing. Do note that these examples are a simplified version. All of these are, because Mipmipmip is gendered. We will discuss that part later once we have the full context for it. In order, these nouns are pronounced probtultal, mantultal, magtultal, and montultal. Verb inflections are classified by whether the verb is perfective, ongoing, or habitual, as well as the evidentiality. Did you see it or did you merely hear about or infer it? The written verbs are pronounced tal til tal, lats til tal, dal til tal, and ladstiltal. For the adjective inflections, they are mostly categorized by a literal figurative divide and an intensity divide, with the ish equivalent considered as the least intense and neither literal nor figurative. In order, these adjectives are pronounced vatiltal, vatiltal, vastiltal, vastiltal, and vatultal. Due to recent developments, this part is somewhat outdated. However, as 1, what I say here is correct, 2, I already finished recording this section, and 3, there exists a recording where someone more knowledgeable than I explains what isn't covered here, I will make do by editing this section and adding what I learned later. Although there is much we don't know about how native speakers talked, it is believed that they used an OSV sentence order. Technically, it was time, object, subject, verb, but we'll discuss that part later. Adjectives were placed after what they modified, as were the possessives, with the possessor after the possessed, but it is unclear how, or if, these were marked. Similar to its ancestor Pachresha, Mipmipmip has time-based gender, which is unrelated to when things happened, but more so related to how old things are. These genders are young, old, and inanimate, and have associated vowels. However, unlike Pachresha, these vowels do not define a word's gender, instead agreeing with the gender of the sentence. Instead, Mipmipmip determines gender from the number of syllables in a word once it has been inflected. To identify a word's inherent gender, one takes the number of syllables it has once it's inflected, divides that by 3, and checks the remainder. If that remainder is 1, then the word is inanimate. If it is 2, then the word is young. And if there is no remainder, then the word is old. Each sentence had its own gender, which mostly seems to be defined by the object, although there are a few exceptions. This means 2 things. First, that all words must use the inflection prefix for the sentence's gender, and second, that words with the wrong syllable count must be corrected for, specifically by tacking meep on the end as a filler, repeatedly. Now, before I go into the recent developments, I must explain that the footage I'm about to show you was not staged, and the only edits I made to it are for time. The events you are about to see began shortly after I entered the recording studio, while I was still exhausted from having to go up the stairs 3 times because the elevator broke. Seriously, who thought it was a good idea to have 15 students all jump at the same time while the elevator was stopping? Vitvidjon. Wait. Vutvudjon meep. Vutvudjon meep. Vutvudjon meep. Guess that's good of a cue, man. Stupid foul bull. You know what? I'm gonna just take 2. Sir, I'm in here. Over there. Take a different room. This one's occupied. I'm in here. Stop knocking. Bavlitsnang. No, that I is supposed to be a U. Nangi.
Hey, do you want to learn about cases? Okay, so the big important thing about this language that nobody wrote down started due to a chance encounter with the Benedictine monks. Now, as you may or may not be familiar with, they took their vows of silence pretty seriously. In fact, they were so serious about it that many of the world's sign languages are descended from theirs. Certainly everything that touched Francis.
Okay.
So, how is this relevant? It's simple. If the monk signs are the great-grandfather of modern Anelian sign languages, then Mipmipmip is the weird grandpa nobody wants to talk about. Don't worry, it's not going to be that bad. Your coda, you know this stuff already. They didn't really change much. Like Anelian Global Sign Language, Mipmipmip uses the time, object, subject, verb sentence order. Unlike AGSL, you can never skip signing time. It denotes the start of the sentence. Also, unlike AGSL, there's no way to indicate 2 different times or to indicate that something is subject to 2 separate cases within a sentence. Instead, you would be expected to either say the sentence twice, once with each time, or to repeat the noun in question. Now, Mipmipmip uses 3 different time periods. These are the past, the present, and the future. In addition, there are 2 modifiers, the saga and the supposed, that can either be used standalone to indicate timeless scenarios, or which can be combined with a time period. The saga indicates a certain degree of timelessness, such as if you're telling a story, whereas the supposed indicates that one is theorizing about events. Although for this one to be grammatically correct, you must either affirm or deny the verb. Otherwise, you're just asking a question. Exactly what that question is depends on the verb ending. Oh, right. To modify words, you sign the relevant sign as you're saying it. Whether you're indicating something is an indirect object, a normal possessor, a superpossessor.
Wait. What is a superpossessor?
Oh, right. I forgot you don't have that in this timeline. It's when one thing owns everything else in the sentence, so you just state that right before the verb so you don't have to repeatedly go, oh, this thing owns this thing owns that.
Hold on. This timeline?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways things can turn out. We could have all evolved from trees, we could be having this conversation via burglaries in a place called Oklahoma City, or we could be speaking to the gods in a variant of French. Time is my wheelhouse, and I've done all sorts of things. I've made mistakes you wouldn't even think were possible.
Like what?
Pro tip, it's a bad idea to use multidimensional time travel to show ancient cultures Looney Tunes. We've both been acquainted with the consequences of that. They even invented the slide whistle because of it.
Although I had not originally planned on a translation, the arrival of a primary source demanded change. As in, the primary source demanded I change to doing a translation because, and I quote, there must be snakes. I'll provide the original text, the glossed version, and written versions in both the original abjad and the alphabet that developed later. Both of these will be on the side and are presented to supplement the spoken and, courtesy of our primary source, signed translation. Poop dur voot vijin mi. Poop kav pulsis mi. Poop na nong voot mi. Poop gich do havlis mi. Pop til tav vulvis mi. Pop til tav. Pop mi. Pop mi. Dal sil sam. Vat havlis pil mi. Mongush gol til tal besaz. Pop dam dig bad sif. Pop tal sip hak mi. Poop mi. Tag dam dig bad mi. Pop cad. Mon kal sip mi. Poop mi. Tol son tov maz mi. Vots valos mi. Poop ngangi mi. Pop gol jun mi. Vots na nang dal mi. Poop mi. Kol nang good mi. Pop sanam. Pop mi. Tong ngangi. Pop talbim. Pop liv tup tosh mi. Pal mi. Gang ngangi. Vat bav pulich mi. Pop ngangi. Vat kad mi. Lat guch mi. Pubal vi shav mi. Pop nang nang. Vat nosh hav pag mi. Pop mi. Lat til tal vulvish mi. Pubav pulis pubab mi. Mi bav pulis mi ovnos mi. Puguch mi. Lit pul mi. Pubav pulis pubab mi. Mi bav pulis mi ovnos mi. Puguch mi. Lit pul mi.